Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. Here's a question for you. How willing are you to change your mind, and how quickly can you change your mind? When was the last time you changed your mind? When was the last time you made a claim or an argument and somebody explained things in a way to you that made more sense than what you'd claimed? And then you said, you know what, you're right. I changed my mind. I don't think that way anymore. You changed my mind. Steven Crowder would change my mind. Charlie Kirk would change my mind. Do they really want to change their mind? Does Steven Crowder change his mind? Did Charlie Kirk change his mind? Who changes their mind? Are there people that change their mind a lot? Or do most people not change their mind? And if they don't, why not? I change my mind a lot. And I think it doesn't sit well with people who get to know me. I think what happens if you change your mind, people want stability. I'm not a big fan of stability. Stability is nice if you're on a boat, or maybe not a boat. Boats are inherently unstable. They move with the water. Maybe you want stability in your house. You don't want your house to be moving with the breeze. But so yeah, if you're a person that makes a big claim like I do, I make big claims all the time. I'm kind of an idiot, and part of the way that I learn, I've said this, I described it this way 25 years ago, and I still think it's true. I kind of learn from the school of loudmouthery. I got a big mouth. I don't know when to shut up. I say a lot of things, and in so doing, I get a lot of pushback. I get a lot of volunteers raising their hands and raising their fists to punch me in the nose and tell me I'm wrong and that I'm stupid. But luckily for me, I think, is that I benefit from that, and that when somebody does step up and show me something, I go, oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, all right, cool. Let's have a side conversation over here, And I learn in a sneaky way. I don't have to pay any tuition fees. Black eye here or there, being smeared online. People say mean things. It's a low price to pay, especially if you're changing your mind, if you've updated your system. But for whatever reason, I don't have a problem with changing my mind. I don't have a problem flushing the toilet either. I'm not attracted to my turds. I don't find I have a desire to keep my turds. I did pee in bottles one time as just a fun art experiment. And I had about 50 bottles of my own pee. Notice it. Anyway, pee changes color over time. I don't know if you notice this, but it starts out light and then gets darker over time. But anyway, that's an art project. But I don't feel like I want to keep my old things. In fact, I don't even really have. The word nostalgia kind of implies that there's this yearning or longing for that which passed or something, the good old days. I don't have a strong sense of nostalgia either. In fact, I have something a little bit different than that. Like when I think about the past, I tend to have a selective memory where I mostly remember the bad things. And so I don't like thinking about the past too much because it gives me that queasy, uneasy tummy ache, that feeling of ugh. looking at it's like looking in the toilet. You want to look in the toilet after you take a dump, to make sure there's not blood or living creatures in there. But it's not like you want to stoop down. You don't want to put your face in the toilet bowl and really get a good look. You get a glance, you go, huh, interesting. That one came out really fast. And I think it might be shaped like my bowels. How did that happen? How did it come out of my butthole and retain the shape of my bowels? And on that subject, I've been pooping a lot of question marks lately, which is kind of interesting. I guess I'm kind of defeating my point, aren't I? But no, you don't need to really study your turds. You don't need to hold on to them. You don't need to stockpile them. You can do the quick glance, go, all right, got some information. You can flush the goddamn toilet. And I think that flush handle, was probably one of the greatest inventions of all time. Here is your turd. It is your problem. It is the things that you ate are in there. It's stinky, it's messy. But just put it in this nice little toilet. This little bit of water will cover the stink for the brief period of time that you have to share the room with it. And then after, you just flush the toilet, and like magic, it goes through a series of tubes all the way to the Great Salt Lake. Pretty magical. You can get rid of it. You can move on. You don't have to carry it around. Now, you could ask yourself, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? That convenience, what has it done? Shoving off the job to somebody else. Somebody else is breaking down your turds and turning it into potable water. And you don't have to deal with it. Not like the people that used to have to go dig a hole in the outhouse. Oh, man, the outhouse. How long did that work? You look at India, people are still shitting on the ground over there. Are they more advanced? I don't know. I'm getting at something, I promise. But the reason why I ask is because I notice when I look at the world, I see mostly people, in my view, who don't change their minds a lot at all. Look at Guy Fieri, for example. I see a world full of Guy Fieris. A guy who found his fashion sense when he was 21 or 18 to 21, and he's still doing it. It's like he formulated, he found an aesthetic he liked, an area of expertise he liked, and then locked in. He just locked in, boom. The rest of his life is spent being that, defending that, or whatever. And I find that to be the case, curiously, with a lot of people, even old people. I see a lot of old people that are gradually changing. And of course, I've been happy that some of my closest friends have gone with the flow, and they're bird watching, and they're just all the things. I mean, next step is RVs and square dancing, I think, But I see just too many people out there that don't change their minds. They lock in and call it pride, maybe laziness, maybe they got too busy. But the reason why I want to make this recording here is because I think the internet is making it much harder for people to change their minds, because there's something, I don't know if it's through programming and education, where we think that once something is written, well, it takes on this new weighty romance or importance. It's published, I think one of the reasons why a lot of people don't post a lot is because they don't want to be held accountable for their thoughts. So, but what I'm trying to say is that I think publishing might be keeping people from changing their minds. I think that acts as a big deterrence. What if somebody pulls up one of my old posts? But you said here in your first book, yeah, well, I changed my mind. Oh, you're a flip-flopper. You have no clarity. You have no convictions. You have no principles. You go with the wind. You go with the flow. You need principles. You need convictions. Okay? I'm principled and convicted about the idea that I should be adaptable to new information, that I should acquire new information, and I should be receptive to new information, to new data, to new experiences more than anything. I think the most important thing is we need to be willing and able and excited to learn through our own experience, to realize, wait a minute, I was taught this thing, but really when I'm looking at the world, it's this thing that seems more true. But yeah, so old blog posts, I switched servers or ISPs a while ago. Not ISPs, the hosts. And I had my whole blog on FTP, and then I went to this new thing with GoDaddy. They made it easier, but my old blog just kind of disappeared. I didn't feel like porting it over. I couldn't figure out a tool to port it over, and I had all this. I did a lot of blogging in the early 2000s, and this is when blogging was kind of a fresh new thing before Facebook and MySpace, where everybody was just linking their blogs to one another, and you're all cruising around to your different blogs, and you'd be on a side roll where people would link to your blog and you'd link to theirs, and blah, blah, blah. The spiders would crawl the internet. But anyway, all that went away, and this was back when I was newly transplanted to San Francisco, taking pictures, really oversteering in my reaction against having left Mormonism, just going headlong into hipsterdom, sort of taking pictures of naked ladies and going out and drinking every night, and reporting on it's the early days of the internet still, so there's a lot of shock value, say things. But you're basically publishing things that before that point wouldn't have ever made it through a publisher. That was one of the interesting things about no gatekeeping, is that a lot of us would intentionally put on our blogs things that we knew publishers would have never invested in. There was a freedom. You could be totally retarded, stupid. You could just say the most insane shit. And that was part of the fun. It's just like, wait a minute, this is in print, available everywhere, and it's insane, it's stupid, it's retarded, it's wacky, it's silly, it's absurd, and I can do it. Anyway, I, believe it or not, even through all those days, I still had my sort of libertarian, conservative point of view. I never really lost that. It just looked a little bit different, It looked like Gavin McInnes and other people, contemporaries. Punk rock, conservatism. But anyway, I was trying to remember an article that I written way back in 2004, 2005 for a friend about the Jews, and it was called "I Know Who My Friends Are," and it was basically comparing Palestinians to Jews, and the Jews are the doctors and the lawyers and the filmmakers and the artists, and the Palestinians didn't have anything to offer but Joe Camel, or something like that. It's just brash. And so I went back and I went into the Wayback Machine, and I found it. And by finding it, I was able to click through my old blog, and that same thing just kind of happened. That non-anti-nostalgic feeling when I'm reading it, I'm just going, ugh, I hate this. I feel the same way even just listening to if I listen to this recording even right after I make it, like 10 minutes from now, I don't do that anymore, I publish it without listening to it again. I do some subtitle works to position them, but I do that with the audio off, because if I do listen to it, anti-nostalgia thing kicks in and it just doesn't feel good. There's a queasiness that I feel about looking into the toilet bowl, you know? Short, it's got to be short. No lingering. You don't linger. You don't hover above the toilet bowl. You don't cram the turd back up into your butt, ever, you know? You don't pick it up and play with it, put it in your pocket and carry it around. You flush the goddamn toilet. But we're living in a world where the flushing doesn't happen. One of my first posts on Twitter, way back, I joined in the very early days, and one of my first posts got liked by tons of people and shared by a bunch of people, and it was just like, if every turd you ever flushed came flooding back out of the toilet, you could call that Facebook. And I meant it, because suddenly everybody you forgot about, all the people you forgot about, all the ideas you forgot about, all of a sudden they're there. The computer's reminding you about this person, that person. And that's the case right now. Facebook, these things are reminding you of things that you would have forgotten about completely. Our brains aren't that great. I mean, I guess you hear those stories of those people that have a photographic memory and they end up going crazy. I get that. I think our brains are supposed to retain some information and not others. And you're supposed to be able to have moods and say things, and have ideas and have thoughts and be able to open your mouth and work things through, on your journey somewhere else without having that record always being there so somebody else could go, look, you said this. Yeah, I said that when I was 23, didn't own anything. I said that. It was at a party. It was after this thing. The context is gone. You can rebuild it, of course you want to, but that's not the way people are using it. And it feels like people are not allowing themselves to grow. They're not allowing other people to grow and change because of this record. This record that's following you around. You're dragging around. The internet is attaching this. And again, I don't really care. I don't really care because I feel completely fine explaining why I changed my mind. I like to talk. Obviously, I'm talking to a little box right now. So I don't mind the opportunity to explain the journey and why I changed my mind. Just ask me, I'll explain anything. But what I see with most people is maybe they lack the confidence or the delusion that I have, and they don't want to say things, and they are afraid of things coming back up. I think about this all the time too, because I've completely changed my mind about what it means to make art and what kind of art that I want to make. I got really popular a long time ago, over a decade ago, for my nude photography, or photography art containing nude people, and I was kind of like, people, you're too hung up, it's just bodies, it's just naked people, who cares, kind of wallowing around in the mud of moral relativism. So I've changed my mind about that. I don't make art like that anymore, but my Flickr page is still up there. I still get friend requests daily for people that start following me on Flickr. Believe it or not, Flickr is still a thing. People are still using it. I don't know how or why, but it's still there. And I think, should I delete that? Because I don't agree with my former me. And when I deleted my blog, it wasn't because I wanted to flush the toilet of my life. It was just a laziness and not wanting to figure out how to port it over to the new format. But it's still out there on the Wayback Machine. And there are things on it that I'm neither ashamed nor proud of. You say, it's cringy. But that's everything. That's every poop you ever poop is cringy. To me, everything you ever do in the past, to one degree or another, is kind of cringy, especially if you do it with confidence, which has been my main problem. You know, I've been confidently wrong a lot in my life, and I'll be confidently wrong more in my life probably too. I don't remember choosing my personality, let's just put it that way. But yeah, we're living in a world that's really, really, really different from any human beings before us, you know? And we're talking super recently, since the internet on, let's just call it 2000 on. 2000 is when people all started getting on the internet, you know, publishing. Actually, it's probably a lot later than that. It's more like 2010 when Facebook came along, where everybody started publishing. At first, it was just the artists and us loudmouths that had to get out there and, you know, crash down the gates of the gatekeepers and get out there and say, what I have to say is important. Listen to me. I make jokes about poops and flushing toilets. You know, but then, you know, with Facebook, everybody became a publisher. You know, different kinds. Here's a photo of my dog. Here's my salad. You want to see a picture of my salad? I think it was a pretty good salad. I comment, goat cheese, that's the worst. It tastes like you're eating vomit. But so now we have these salads and comments that are following us around. You haven't had any goat cheese in a while. Yeah, I don't like it as much anymore. Well, I knew it. I'm the one that said, let's look back. It's a post here in 2000. You know, all this record keeping, I don't think it's good for people. And maybe there's a way around it. Maybe you can steer people into becoming confident and comfortable with changing their mind. But I think it more has the effect of, I don't know, it's I think people dig in their heels more than they might have. I don't know. I don't live in a different alternate universe where I could test it out, but were people more adaptable, you know, in the 1800s when they didn't have every minute of their life documented and recorded, you know, and triangulated? I mean, it's certainly, you could say that it's maybe harder to tell a lie now, and maybe that's good. But should we allow certain lies? I mean, should we allow people to just go, I don't know. The point is I read some blog posts of mine that I posted back in the early 2000s that I don't remember writing at all. You know, and it wasn't because of alcohol. I could go back even just to 2018 when I started this stupid opinion machine thing. And I did this. This is one of the reasons why I know that I get sick to my stomach if I listen to things over again. But somebody had commented on one. It's kind of weird to get comments on these recordings anyway, because there's not a lot of people listen to them. But occasionally some people listen to them, and occasionally somebody will comment on a really old post, you know, from 5 years ago. And they'll make this big, nice, long comment, and I'll have no context. I'll just go, okay, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, I don't remember what I said in yesterday's recording, let alone a recording I made 5 years ago. But because I'm not inundated with comments like Joe Rogan or somebody else, I can just go, all right, well, I'm going to see if I can listen to this at double speed and see what I said, to just give me context on their comment. And I listen to a recording, and I'm listening to the recording that I made just a few years ago, and I'm like, this may as well have been another person recording it. Because while I recognize the brain I recognize the voice and I recognize the thinking process behind it. It's all very familiar because, yes, I said it. It still feels like listening to it as if I didn't say it, you know? There was a part in that recording where it was like I was telling this story and I was going, oh man, I don't remember this thing happening at all. You know, I'm telling this story about an incident where I had some beef with some people who were not wanting me to photograph them. And I'm like, okay, that's a true thing. That happened all the time as a photographer. You know, you go out and take a picture and somebody says, don't take my picture. You don't have a right to take my picture or whatever. So I'm telling this story. I didn't remember a goddamn thing about it, nothing about it, until I finally got into it. And the old me says, ha, I tricked you. That was a dream I had. And then I went, oh yeah, now I remember. But I was sucked into the story just like anybody else would have been, you know, and I'm the one that fucking wrote it. You know, I think the point is that maybe we should feel more free, you know, to just change our minds. Maybe we shouldn't have all this stuff following us around. I don't know what to do about it. I'm not suggesting that. I don't know. Maybe I am suggesting. I just think maybe the world might be a better place if people could just, if there was a little flush handle on the internet, on your internet, you know, where you could just say something, communicate it with the audience you want, and just go flush. And then it's all gone. It's just gone forever. Just like your little turd, you know, and then you can start fresh. And you can forget about the people you forget about. And you can remember the people that you naturally remember. Imagine you're in 1889 and you're just sitting in your little easy chair smoking a Victorian cancer cigarette or something, some terrible thing. You're smoking asbestos or something, you know, and you're just sitting there with your thoughts. You know, who would you think about? Who would you remember? Maybe a friend from childhood? Maybe somebody you just met at the grocery store? Lord knows you wouldn't be scrolling a magic glowing screen and seeing everybody you ever knew. You know, a person you dated once and now you see a picture of her and her family, you know, them on a boat somewhere. Your vice principal, you see him on vacation. We're supposed to forget people. I feel like this memory machine, and they're intentionally doing it too, like Facebook almost like mocks you. Here's a post you made 10 years ago today, and you're like, that sounds like me, but I don't remember doing that. But all of a sudden you're reminded of the people you were with and maybe a dark era in your life, and you're like, I don't need to remember that. Thank you, but I had forgotten about that. Facebook, why do you feel like I need to be reminded about that? Like, what mechanism in the world for the most of humanity even existed to remind us of things? Maybe a certain smell, a certain feeling in the air, maybe a song, maybe maybe an old sweater. And it was specific about, you know, an experience you really had. But now we're in this feedback loop. The toilet's shooting our own turds right back at us, and we have to sit there and live with them and clean it up, and there's got shit all over the house. You're like, holy crap, what is this? What is this? What is in this turd? I don't remember eating anything with that kind of seed in it. I don't think it's probably very healthy for this electronic active system. I mean, even if it was books, even if you kept a journal, like, right? I come from Mormonism, where for whatever reasons, Mormons love to write journals, you know? And I've mentioned it here before, but when I open up my journal from when I was a teenager, it's like this story that I'm writing to convince future generations that I'm a cool, awesome kid. You know, like, it's just a lie. It's PR. I'm running my journal from when I was 14 is PR for future me or anybody that might find it, you know? But the difference is if I walk past my journal in my house or the shelf on which it's placed, it doesn't fly out at me and open a page and put it in my face. Remember this? Remember when you thought this? Remember when you lied and pretended you have this girlfriend that you didn't really have? You know, it doesn't fly out in my face. I can carry on. But with this online media, but again, I understand the answer to the question is just fucking log off, you know? And I know some people who have logged off, and I I openly admire them. Not to the degree that I'm logging off myself, you know, because I do realize that online discourse is shaping much of the real world now. And for whatever sick and disgusting reasons, I'm compelled to at least rubberneck it and nudge it, you know? Anyway, like we needed another post about how the internet is really messing with our brains and our souls in a way we can't really comprehend because, you know, for the billions of years that it took, or whatever, take it a creation, thousands of years, I don't give a shit. For the thousands or billions of years that it took for human beings to get to this point, I don't think we've adapted well. It doesn't seem like we're adapting well. You know? The birth rates plummeting because people are watching porn, maybe stalking ex-lovers, following the lives of people they never even liked. You know, that's a weird phenomenon too. I'm pretty good now, but it's only been in the recent few years. It's just like when I see a name pop up on my Facebook feed, somebody that I knew a long time ago, I just quickly go, okay, I haven't thought of you. I don't care about you. I never did care about you. Unfollow. Boom. But for a long time, I would just not unfollow. I would see their post. It would be recorded as a new memory for me. And I'm just allowing this algorithm to remind me of people that in no way, shape, or form would I have ever remembered them without that influence. You know, anyway. Might be good to forget some shit. I think forgetting things is a blessing. I think the good Lord blessed us with a brain that doesn't remember everything. I think we're supposed to forget things. I think that's part of living a healthy, happy life, is forgetting even people, but forgetting certain experiences, bad ones and good ones, you know? And I think there's probably, if you have faith in nature, faith in God, or whatever you want to say, there's a mechanism, and that the stuff we remember naturally is probably the stuff we need to remember, and all the other stuff is just getting in the way. That's what it's doing. It's getting in the way. It's pollution. That's what it is. It's pollution. Anyway, maybe I'll log off more. I probably won't. But I'll be thinking about it. Thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to totally waste more